This week on Head to Head, we review The Mandalorian.
You're listening to Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Two fans, two generations, all things Star Wars. Begins now.
Hello, everybody. I'm Eric Vansel.
And I'm Daryl Sanders.
And we're your hosts for this podcast. So Disney Plus finally came out.
Yeah, man.
What'd you think?
You know, I'm really pleased with Disney Plus so far. The layout is pretty cool. It's kind of self-explanatory. I'm glad, like, when it was released, there weren't any glitches on my end.
Yeah, I know. You know, a lot of people were talking about it, though. Like, you know, how some of the content wouldn't download for them, how, you know, I mean, there wasn't a lot of stuff available. The app would crash or whatever, but I didn't have any of those issues either. Yeah,
I didn't have any issues. I was wondering kind of how everything was going to be kind of laid out and set up.
Right.
So kind of, you know, they have like I like how they have like the panels with the major properties. So you got Disney, Star Wars, Marvel.
Yes.
They kind of have that. So if you just want to go, if you know exactly kind of where you're going, you can just hit one of those and just go straight to it. And then, you know, of course, they have all the litany of, you know, 90s cartoons and stuff that I grew up on, and a lot of movies. And a lot of people are kind of upset though about there's some content that's available that's technically there but not available. So some programs and movies won't be scheduled to like 2020, 2021.
I heard about that, but I didn't run into anything that was an issue. Did you actually run into something where that was?
Yeah, I can't remember what I was looking, but it was like some. There's a couple like the Disney movies, and there's a couple like the older, you know. And what I think it is even some of the Marvel stuff, like, because when you look at the Marvel properties, you know, they don't have all the movies there, and I think partially it's because they're on other platforms.
That. Yeah,
so they're probably like on like Netflix, and of course,
right, or Prime or something, and then it's got to they got to wait till the contract comes up, and that's what what's happened with a lot of different shows. They're kind of waiting for those things to kind of run out, and then they'll be available to be on Disney. Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. I mean, and I was an early adopter of it. I mean, I signed up for it as soon as they made it available because, number one, I thought it was, well, I mean, you know, I wanted to obviously see The Mandalorian, but I actually thought it was a really good deal. Yeah. And I remember we even talked about it on a number of our shows.
Yeah.
About how, you know, it was going to compete with Netflix and Prime, and how, you know, I mean, it's going to be, I still think it's going to be a major contender. The only thing is that I was just, I don't know, to me, it just doesn't have as much content as I thought it was going to have.
Yeah, I mean, you know, one of our friends was talking about it, you know, how they didn't have some of the Disney XD stuff, or, you know, there's a lot of different things that, like I said, I think they have a big enough catalog of things. So I think they're getting a lot of that stuff out. Like, for example, I'm a huge like Darkwing Duck fan, so I couldn't wait to like finally watch it. But the crazy thing is like they have all these episodes, but they didn't have the first one.
Really?
Yeah, like the initial episode, like I had to like watch it on YouTube.
Seriously,
like it started with the second episode, and I was just like, because the first episode is a two-parter, and I'm like, okay, so I'm expecting to start from, you know, day one basically, and it really gave me like the first.
There's a lot. The
first episode is really the second episode.
A lot of them do that though. Like some of the other streaming services, I've noticed that where there'll be episodes that are missing. You know, and you're just kind of like, well, what gives? Yeah, what happened? I mean, it's like you own, especially Disney. They own the content, right? It's like, why on earth wouldn't you have that? Now I understand, kind of like what you were alluding to, that, you know, the licensing and stuff like that. And there are some exclusivity, you know, rights that they have, you know, like we were making the joke about The Last Jedi and Solo, like, yeah, Netflix, you know what, you can have those too, since, you know, the fans didn't really like them or whatever, we'll just take the rest. Right. But I was pleasantly surprised that they actually had the Star Wars movies in 4K.
Yeah, that was sweet.
You know?
And guess what? I actually started watching Star Wars Resistance.
Did you really?
I actually did.
Guys, he started watching Star Wars Resistance. How long have at least I been waiting for that?
Yeah, I finally started watching it, so it's pretty cool. It took me a little bit to get into the animation and some of the stuff. I mean, some of the stuff I
actually really, you know what?
It's cool. Funny. Like once you
get into it, because I actually like the animation a lot. It's got a vibe to it that I really enjoy. Yeah. You know, because at first I was the same way. I was really used to the typical Star Wars animation, you know, that we've grown used to. But then after a while, it was kind of like I like the vibe of this animation, and I don't know, there's something about it that just feels right for this series to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I mean, what episode are you on?
I think I'm on either 2 or 3. Yeah, kind of. It's this whole like, he got introduced to Poe, and then of course he saw the whole Leia, hologram, and then now he's about to compete in that big race against the owner, like the owner's daughter, who's like on that little tanker or that little island that they're on. That he's supposed to be the best pilot in the galaxy, which I found funny because that guy kept repeating it to everybody, and everybody's just calling him the best pilot in the galaxy. So yeah,
it's cool, and you'll find that as it goes on, it gets a little bit. Like, I mean, there's still that little kid silliness vibe to it, but it gets a little bit more, I guess, meaty.
Okay.
Would be the best way to put it. Like, I really love the characters. A lot.
I'm trying to say his full name is like kind of hard, so I just call him Kaz like everybody else.
Like everybody else.
Yeah, man.
That's all you got to do.
I'm not doing all that.
But I mean, I really like, a lot of the adult characters in the show. I like the way that and especially when it gets close, like on the last episode or whatever, you actually see Hux's speech, from Force Awakens.
Okay.
And, Kaz's parents basically lived on Hosnian Prime, so he gets to watch him blow up, and, it gets pretty deep. And then, of course, in the second season, I'm sure this is not a spoiler for many of you, but I won't say which one, but one of the characters actually switches sides, goes to the First Order, because they fall for a lot of the First Order's lies, and the second season's actually been really, really cool too. So, and of course, as we know, it's the final season,
right?
So, I mean, I'm glad you started watching it because now we could talk about it,
right?
I'm still reading Thrawn Treason, by the way. Haven't finished that exactly, but I'm trying to get through all these books, and there's new books that are coming out, and. Yeah, man, it's just a lot of Star Wars to talk about.
Absolutely. Well, let's kind of get into it.
You want to do it? Let's go to the Cantina and talk some Star Wars.
All right. Well, good old George Lucas is back again in the news.
Is he?
Yeah, so, initially we've heard, some things that he was disgruntled about, of course, them not using some of his scripts that he kind of laid out for episode 7.
Yeah.
So now they're talking, or there's rumors that George Lucas had to come in and save the Rise of Skywalker. Now, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how true this is.
You know what? And I think I heard some of these too. And it's the funny thing is, if I remember correctly, we might be referencing the same article, but they were actually pretty, they were really detailed.
Yeah.
About the whole thing.
Well,
there was a screening or something, and then they didn't everybody liked the first act, but nobody liked the second or third act or something.
Yeah, it's like they brought fans in from different fan levels. So it's like, okay, your casual fan versus the diehards, and so and then they showed different cuts of. Okay, this is JJ's cut, and then this is the producer's cut. This is that person's cut. I think Bob Iger
had Bob Iger cut or something.
Yeah, that he liked, and then there was another. So, and I think they eventually was like, okay, well, the fans like this part, but they didn't like that part. And so they kind of had, the rumor is that they brought George Lucas in to kind of touch up the story. So I guess it would kind of make more sense, or to kind of clear up some plot points or issues that might have been there. So I don't know. I mean, it would be, in a way, it would be cool to kind of have George back in there, because that's one of the things that we've always talked about is the fact that George Lucas, he's a great storyteller. So from the storytelling,
I know, I was going to say, man, am I a bad guy because I really hope that this is a true rumor?
Yeah, because it's like,
I mean, I really do.
Storyteller.
And he's also he started it all. It would make sense that if he were there at the end, like the guy that kind of wraps it up a little bit.
Yeah, and especially if he's trying to tie everything else together. I mean, it would make sense that he would kind of be involved in it a little bit more, just because, JJ is trying to connect all the dots, and he wants to make sure that everything is cohesive and it makes sense.
Exactly.
So
I hope so. I mean, I honestly hope so. I mean, what do you think that a George Lucas, I mean, I guess this is more speculation that we would have to do after we see the movie, but
right.
It's almost like I wonder what kind of things that he would do, especially because he has to stay within the confines of
the
this
new canon.
Yeah, of the new canon.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too, I'm often, this is what drives me nuts, is that you hear stuff about, and all these different versions.
Yeah, I know.
And you're just kind of like, well, I wonder, like, we'll see what's actually made the cut, and that's actually being released in the theaters. But like, okay, we might like, man, this is awesome. But like, let's just say there's a part that we didn't like. It's like, well, I wonder if that was in the original. You see what I'm saying? Like,
it's almost how I felt about Solo with the Lord and Miller thing. Like, man, I wonder what the Lord and Miller thing was like. And then you find out that there were certain scenes that were in the original Lord and Miller version, and those are the ones that I really love. So now I'm like, man,
I wonder what
their version would have been, or what would a Colin Trevorrow episode 9 have been like?
Exactly.
It's kind of like,
yeah.
I mean, it's almost like these like what if universe things, and it
kind of keeps the speculation going even more, because it's like, well, what was it originally supposed to be?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, if this would have happened, then that would have made more sense to me, or
right.
I wish that would have kept that in there, because that would have been really cool to see. You know what I'm saying? It's just all these little things that you may never know.
Well, and I think beyond a consulting thing, having Lucas actually directly involved in Rise of Skywalker, I think it would be beneficial, because he could actually, I think, add like a certain perspective that I don't think anybody else could, simply because he was the guy that originated the story.
Yeah.
And because this is the last one, I don't know. I just think that he would be the best guy to tie it up.
It will be cool to see he and JJ just bring it on home.
Yeah.
That's together, and that would be kind of like the perfect, because you almost like that would be almost a perfect marriage, because it's like with George's storytelling ability, but then with JJ's cinematography and his directing ability, like, I mean, honestly, that would be the, but then again, like I said, the original stories that we haven't heard what his original stuff was for this new series, like 7, 8, 9.
Well, actually, yeah, we did.
Well, we kind of did, but not completely, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much out there. They outlined, like what a 7 would have been like and 8 would have been like. I mean, a lot of 8 would have been in 7. His version of Rey was Kira.
Right.
Which I think they just changed the spelling and then put it in Solo.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it would have been, very similar to that. And then, of course, you have all these other crazy things like the microscopic force creatures or something. And there was a little kind of a weird thing he was trying to do, a little THX 1138 style stuff. But, I mean, overall, though, I don't know. That's what I always wonder. I always wonder, like, everybody clamors like, oh, I wish George Lucas had made 7, 8, and 9. And it's like, if he had, it would have been another prequel thing. Everybody would have been saying, oh, man, I wish he would just let somebody else do it.
Right.
And that's unfortunately the problem with fandom nowadays is, like, nobody's happy.
Yeah, you can't please everybody.
And I mean, I think that it's making it... Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, if you guys, are falling into that camp, I'll be the first person to say that Disney has made some very, very big mistakes with the Star Wars franchise. First and foremost, they've been trying to treat it like it's
Marvel.
Like it's any of the other franchises, and you can't do that. Star Wars is its own thing.
Yeah.
And you have to treat it like its own thing. You can't just use a template that you use in another franchise. But at the same time, I think that, the fans, as fans, I think we're putting ourselves into a situation where no matter what they do, we're not happy. It's like you put Star Wars on such a high pedestal that nobody could possibly, say anything. Because if you think about it, what most people would consider relatively infallible is the original trilogy.
Yeah.
Even the prequels were demonized.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's kind of like the whole Luke Skywalker syndrome he had in Last Jedi, where, he's this hero that everybody worshipped, and he's like, he has to live up to that. And
right.
And that's kind of like what Star Wars in and of itself is kind of facing, where it's like it started off being this, like you said, infallible franchise. And then now it's like, okay, there's been some failures, and now people are kind of wondering, what the heck? And that's kind of how Last Jedi was. So maybe that's what Rian Johnson was trying to convey.
Yeah, maybe. But what about you guys? Look at this man. Look at his face. Do you guys think that he is going to be the savior of the Rise of Skywalker? Do you think those rumors are true?
Is he the chosen one?
Want them to be true? Yeah, right. Is he the chosen one? Let us know in the comments section. All right, what do we got next?
All right, so speaking of original trilogy, so, that classic line where Obi-Wan and the Force Ghosts of Obi-Wan and Yoda are talking about, he said that boy is our only hope, and, to Yoda's reply is, no, there is another. So at that time, we all knew that he was referring to Leia. We all knew he was referring to Leia at the time.
Right.
But now they're trying to make it...
Who?
Well,
I'm not even letting you finish. Who's trying to make what? Because that is definitely Leia, man. I'm sorry. Whoever... Is it one of you guys?
Well, now they're trying to say... I guess they're trying to change lore a little bit and making it seem like he was talking about Rey. No, there is another, in other words, there will always be another, not in the sense of, at that time it was Leia, but now it's still always going to be another.
So in other words, it's like no matter who, no, it's Broom Kid now, or no, it's somebody else. It's like there's always somebody that's willing to pick up the mantle.
Yeah, it's basically like that. And it kind of goes with the whole Snoke thing, darkness rises, forces, the light rises.
Well, and even a lot of our previous discussions, too. We were always talking about how the Force is always going to choose somebody to right any imbalance, in the universe.
Right, good or bad.
Yeah, but I think that we can inconclusively... Well,
say at that time, at that time period, he was referring to Leia.
Well,
like Yoda was
Lucas,
talking.
Yeah, and Lucas himself said he was referring. That ends right there.
Well, yeah, true.
George Lucas himself said, yes, Leia was the one, that was the other. So, whoever's really trying to do the whole revisionist history thing. Now, granted, I know that Disney is trying to play a lot with the lore of Star Wars, especially now. So, we'll see, where that falls. And I'm really curious to see where it falls even in the Rise of Skywalker because, Leia has... Now, granted, it's not the original idea that they had, before Carrie Fisher unfortunately passed away, but they still found a way to get her in there for 8 minutes of screen time. So I'm really wondering now where they're going to go, with her role and how basically what her effect on the Rise of Skywalker is, too, because there's been a lot of rumors that have been talking about her role in this movie, even though it was obviously, unused footage, but, they've been able to actually weave a story in there.
Yeah. So, I get what they're saying, but I just feel like with this whole line, it's like, listen, no, this is what it was really supposed to be. It was really about Leia. Now, yes, you can kind of play with it and say like, oh, well, there always will be another, and that's true from a certain point of view, but I just, it's Leia.
Once again, it's like, why do people keep trying to complicate the Star Wars universe?
I think they're just trying always trying to make that connection in that time, but like that's what JJ's for. Just let him do it, and we'll.
The one thing that I am looking forward to, besides actually seeing this movie for myself, is to just end the speculation. Now, granted, there's still things that we speculate about the other two movies.
True.
So, who knows? We might be like, oh, well, because they don't explain it, and it's like, hey, look at the line we're talking about right now came from The Empire Strikes Back. Still debating it, but it, and remember, the original script for The Rise of Skywalker was going to see Leia coming into her own as a Jedi. She's going to build her own lightsaber or something crazy and actually, wield it and do all kinds of crazy things. So maybe they're finding a way to either pass that on, and now Rey's going to take on the Leia role that they initially, were going to do, or maybe it's like you said, maybe it's just a situation where it's like, no, everybody can be the new, chosen one or whatever.
It would be interesting to see Leia with the lightsaber, just to see her
with
it in her hand. Like, that was just...
I wish she hadn't passed away just because as a human thing. But, as a fan of this franchise and looking at her role as Leia, it's like, dude, to actually see her go around, like, wielding a lightsaber and using the Force and all that, that's... That would have just been incredible. I could have let go of the whole Han Solo dying thing to see that.
Well, yeah, I mean, once again, we can file that under, like, man, I wonder what that would have looked like.
Yeah, I know. Well, I could do it in an animated series if they really wanted to.
True, but it's still not the same as like.
No, I know.
But yeah, I get
to see Carrie Fisher herself do it.
Yeah. This is why we're in the canteen. You got to drink our proper.
I guess so. Well, what about you guys? What do you think that this whole there is another thing could be retconned basically into something? Let us know in the comments below, or you can always hit us up at head-to-head-SW on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. All right, what do we got next?
All right, so the Mandalorian is finally here.
It is.
We're going to talk about it a little bit, but he actually has a name.
He has a name.
Yes.
Now this is something that I actually missed.
Yes.
Now, of course, like you said, we're gonna do our full review of the first 2 episodes, but taking a little detour.
Yeah. So of course, it hasn't been revealed in the show yet, so no one's actually called him.
Okay, because at first I'm like, I was reading this when you sent the outline. I'm like, man, did I miss something? Like, should I actually be reviewing this? Because if I missed that he actually has a name. What else did I miss? Well,
here's the backstory to it. So, the actor Pedro Pascal actually, in the interview, said the name accidentally.
Okay, that's what they were talking about.
Yeah,
because I read something about that he was that they were like, oh, he accidentally revealed some big thing in The Mandalorian. I thought it was maybe that whole big spoiler or whatever, but
yeah.
It wasn't. He actually said his name?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
So,
man.
They were asking to describe his character, and he's like, oh, well, blank is, and they're like, that's his name. Oh, okay, cool. So it's like, he kind of then describes, he's a lone gunslinger, kind of like the old Wild Wild West Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, former employee, Pedro Pascal says.
Right. Now he's there with Ruffalo.
Yeah. Exactly.
In the unemployment line.
Yep.
Yeah, but so
they're having lunch.
So his name is Din Djarin. That's the Mandalorian. That's his actual.
Sounds like one of the students we had in our club.
I know. So, and it's funny because, they like to use or, reuse different names in Star Wars. So they'll kind of find stuff from books or whatever, and they'll kind of put them together. So that's kind of how they came up with Din Djarin. So
I thought maybe they played that really cool Star Wars meme game or something. Take the first 3 letters of your birthday, last name or something, and the street, the street you were born on or something.
Nah.
And
so yeah, so that is the Mandalorian's name. So I'm sure we'll probably hear it eventually in the show.
Well, I mean, if he has a name, then absolutely.
Yeah. I
know they were saying that they were never going to have him take his helmet off.
Mm-hmm.
Was that only a season 1 thing, or was that?
I don't know. I think that might be
the whole show.
I think it might be a season 1 thing. I mean, depending on how many seasons this goes, I'm sure we'll probably eventually get to. Because even when we do the review, I was going to mention something about that because I know he had to be hot in that thing.
Oh yeah, I mean, not to mention the fact he takes it off. He has to eat. He's got to do all this other stuff.
Right.
But then again, we never saw Boba Fett without his helmet.
But then
again, he wasn't
the main
he was
character.
He was only on screen for maybe 7 minutes per movie or something.
Right.
So,
yeah, Well, I think that's
yeah. I mean, that actually pretty much
for the Cantina today.
I think is that our last Cantina segment?
Yes, sir.
Man, time goes by so quick when you're just sitting and chilling in the Cantina.
Absolutely. Well, now,
all right.
We have Duel of the Fates. All right. So this week we have, which was the better story?
Better story.
The better story.
Better story.
Better story.
I mean, this is good. I gotta get into this stuff because I gotta.
Yeah, put your mind.
Sometimes I admit, you'll come up with something and then I'll run in a whole nother direction.
You're like,
with it.
Better movie or better something.
Yeah, well, and
I get it.
A lot of times that's why I try to clarify this stuff because I remember one of the early podcast episodes we did. I remember I really got crazy and went we had this 25-minute discussion. And then you ended up saying at the end of it something to the effect of, well, okay, that's cool, but what I actually meant was.
Yeah, and you're like, oh man, well I would have.
Oh, well, in that case, I want to change my answer. So, better story.
Better story.
All right.
Better story.
Better story.
The Phantom Menace or Force Awakens?
Man, the better story.
Mm-hmm.
See, and I was all prepared to debate the better movie.
Yeah, that's where I originally started, and I was like, I'm going to make this complicated.
Thanks.
No problem. That's what I'm here for.
I don't know, man. I'm gonna go for the Phantom Menace. As far as better story.
Okay.
Now, keep in mind that it was not. I'm not gonna go as far as some fans would say and say it was completely poorly executed.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say that it wasn't the best executed film I've seen.
Right.
You know, I mean, there was a lot of things that I think could have been done differently, and we all know that George is not an actor's director.
Right.
You know, I mean, his version of directing would be, well, you know, just say the line.
Stand over there
and say the line. What's the problem? What are you talking about? What's your motivation? Your motivation is you're on the set. Say the line.
You're getting paid.
You're getting paid. Just like so I get that. And I think that, you know, particularly like people like Jake Lloyd and even Hayden Christensen later on, I think because they were carrying the film essentially, especially Jake Lloyd, because, you know, I know he was in Jingle All the Way, which of course I watch every Thanksgiving. You know, Thanksgiving's coming up. My family and I, we always watch like Jingle All the Way, the Trans-Siberian TV special that came out in like 99 or something, but we have the DVD. You know, we had the DVD of it, and then usually, you know, whatever else we want to watch. But every time I watch Jingle All the Way, yes, Jake Lloyd was, I guess, a little annoying, but you know, he's a kid.
He's a kid.
Most kids are. But I thought that, you know, he really did a good job selling that character.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the way that he interacted with, you know, everybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, you had Schwarzenegger, you had, what's her name? Like Rita something. It's Tom Hanks' wife. She was in it. She played Schwarzenegger's wife in it.
Mm-hmm.
But then you get to the Phantom Menace, which really was only, I think, made like 3 years later or something. And then, you know, suddenly he's kind of wooden and, you know, and it just shows you, man, like a good director is vital.
Yeah.
To the performance of an actor. I mean, some actors can basically get around. Like, look at Liam Neeson.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, even though, you know, a lot of those guys come off as really wooden, you know, you have like these Oscar-nominated actors and their performances come off, you know, very stiff or whatever. But all that said, if you really look at the story of The Phantom Menace, it's a good story.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's setting up the whole background of the Emperor and, you know, and everything else. Where now when you go to The Force Awakens, I think The Force Awakens is a really good story. But if you're going to compare the stories, I think The Phantom Menace is better. And I think it's more original.
Yeah, I like the story of The Phantom Menace better than The Force Awakens. For the simple fact that it was, like you said, it was more original. Even though we already knew kind of a little bit about it. I mean, we kind of knew this is like Darth Vader's story, essentially. So you kind of already knew a little bit about it, but not this early on.
Yeah, and that's
so I think that's what made it, you know.
There's the Darth Vader part, but that's really all we knew.
Right.
You know, like we didn't know about the whole like politics of it, and
that's my whole thing. Like, how did the Empire actually start to? How did the Empire begin? Because it's not just a story about Vader, but it's also about the beginnings, or the start,
or the end of the Old Republic. You know,
the Old Republic, and just like the setup for the Empire. I guess.
Yeah. I mean, the setup. I would actually argue. Again, this is splitting hairs, but I would argue that the Attack of the Clones is more. Planting the seed of the Empire. But definitely, no, you knew that Palpatine had something going on. He was, trying to amass power for himself. He definitely had an end game in mind.
Mm-hmm.
This wasn't all just like kind of a consequence of an accident or something. Like, well, now that I'm in this position, maybe I'll just take over the universe or something like
right.
that. He was putting all these...
was calculated.
Yeah. I know he was creating dissension and everything so he could, amass the power for himself. And so definitely, yeah. And I think that there's a lot of really good, meaty storytelling details in The Phantom Menace. And, you could also say it's somewhat of a cautionary tale as well. Yeah, I mean,
it's a lot of different, elements to The Phantom Menace that makes it very deep, and you can go off into various sides of it and really kind of get lost in it if you really wanted to.
Completely.
Whereas The Force Awakens was more so just trying to bring everybody back, and so you kind of had to hit certain beats while still trying to be original. You're trying to still wake everybody back up to, look, it's Star Wars again.
Well, here's the thing that I find kind of interesting about a lot of these things is that one of the things that The Phantom Menace has in common with The Force Awakens is they're both the first movie of their respective trilogies.
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be a little bit of a similarity there. You're introducing the world to this group of movies, right? Where The New Hope, same thing. And there's similarities there. And, of course, as one of the criticisms that you all bring up constantly, A New Hope and The Force Awakens are kind of similar in their story beats and just in the overall execution. Whereas The Phantom Menace stands a little bit alone, but even though both movies are the start of their respective series or trilogies, The Phantom Menace has a distinction of being the beginning of the entire saga.
True.
So I think that has a little bit to do with it, too, that you have a little bit more setup. Because, that's one of the things that always confused me, and we've talked about this on other shows, too, where it's like, when I first went and saw Star Wars in the theater, it was like, it just said Star Wars. There was no A New Hope. I remember, they did that on, I think, like the second or third theatrical run, where all of a sudden, it's like Star Wars and then Episode 4, A New Hope. And I remember turning to my dad. I was like 7 or 8 years old, and I'm like, did I like stroke out or something? Like, did I? Well, I didn't actually say that, but I'm like, how did I miss that?
Mm-hmm.
And then like, well, this is Episode 4.
Where's 1?
Well, what happened to 1, 2, and 3?
Mm-hmm.
And then Lucas started doing all these interviews where it's like, oh yeah, this is part of like a 12-part, saga and all this stuff, and you're kind of like, okay. But the thing that I thought was really interesting though is that it could stand alone.
Yes.
On its own.
Right.
Now, I also think...
Because he didn't know how far it was going to... He didn't think it was going to really...
Yeah, well, it was... From the way that he described it at the time, it was like... It was the only movie in the entire saga, which actually I think is true, even looking back now. It's the only one that has a definitive beginning and end.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true. There's no cliffhanger. There's no... It's just kind of like, okay, everybody gets a medal and we all live happily ever after. And all the whole universe is fine now. The Death Star blew up. It wasn't until Empire Strikes Back came that you're like, oh, I guess the Empire's kind of powerful because like, look at all these ships they have. And
well, I think the only thing about, the end of A New Hope, it kind of has a bit of a cliffhanger on it simply because, you see, Vader kind of
spinning out.
And then it's like, all right, well, now at that, I don't think in A New Hope they mentioned the Emperor, did they?
They did. They did only in the part where it's like they were worried about the Imperial Senate and they said, you don't have to worry about it. The Emperor has dissolved them completely or something.
Yeah. Right. So
they mentioned him, but you didn't see him.
Right. I knew we didn't see him until Empire.
Yep.
So my thing is like, okay, the Emperor's out there and then Vader's still out there. So you got to kind of wonder like, what happens now with them? Like, do they just quit?
It wasn't a cliffhanger. Like, you were just dying until, you just assumed, like, okay, they were defeated.
And they just tucked their tails in.
They just fizzled out. It could have been like a defeated army or something.
Right. That makes sense because their big weapon is gone. So
sure, their big weapon's gone. And, we didn't know. You got to put yourself in that, especially during that time period. One of the problems that Disney is having now with Star Wars is the fact that you have so much lore and so much content, you're almost forced to explain a lot of different things. You got to make sure things don't, like the continuity's there. It's not. Whereas back in 1977, 78, Star Wars is out in theaters and it keeps being, re-released like movies were back then. You didn't have like all this baggage, I guess, of all these stories. Mm-hmm. All you knew was contained in that film. So, you didn't really know. I mean, now, we can look at it with almost revisionist history. Like, well, of course, the Emperor's got all this stuff and, Vader's out there and we got all these ships. But yeah, we know that now because of everything that we've seen. But, at that time. Yeah,
that was it.
As far as we were concerned, man, everybody got their medal and the universe was cool. For all we know, the rebel police or whatever went out and apprehended Vader and the Emperor and brought them to trial for their crimes. I mean, we didn't know. Mm-hmm. Until Empire came out, and then you're like, oh.
Wait, there's more.
Yeah, because, if you actually look at A New Hope for what it is, it looks like they got like maybe 1 or 2 Star Destroyers, a bunch of TIE fighters, and the Death Star. Mm-hmm. They would talk about, they didn't even really talk about Imperial bases. All they talked about was Rebel bases. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like you don't really get a sense of the true power of the Emperor and the Empire until, like by Return of the Jedi, you're kind of like, okay, some things are going down.
Yeah.
But until then, it was like when Empire Strikes Back came out, we were all just like, whoa, like the Empire's kind of vast. Look at all these different troopers they have, and like look at this giant Star Destroyer, and they got a couple of them, and they
got AT-ATs, and
they got all this right. It's kind of like you truly see.
Empire's got a budget.
Well, it almost reminded me of during the early '80s when I was playing with all my little G.I. Joe toys and stuff, and it was like one of the things that always irritated me was you really had to have an imagination because they would, G.I. Joe, they'd have like all these, like planes and choppers and tanks and, all this stuff. And Cobra had like maybe like one little vehicle and this tiny little helicopter that didn't even have a cockpit. It was open, and I used to, as a kid, I remember because it had this like little, turret gun. So when I was playing with it, I would change it to like an ion cannon that would actually nuke out all the electronics of these big like planes and choppers. Like you really had to, how could Cobra win against this vast, stuff? So you had to be, it wasn't until after, I was like 13, 14, I'm not playing with toys anymore. Oh yeah, then they released all this stuff for Cobra. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what it reminds me of when you watch A New Hope is that, the Empire, they're powerful, but they don't seem as vast as they really were by the time you get to like Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah. But I think, like the Phantom Menace, I think it's still a superior story compared to, The Force Awakens, simply because I think, you're trying to bring everybody back. That was kind of like the whole vibe and feel that you're trying to, and of course, bringing in these new characters with Poe, Rey, Finn, BB-8. And I think that with the story of, even though like you got Kylo Ren, and he's a kind of a fresh baddie, he's definitely powerful, and he was different because he was like we always say, he was like the first unhinged kind of villain that we've ever seen on the dark side. But I still feel like, the impact that Maul had, just his presence in the whole, even, in the Phantom Menace, even though he wasn't really on screen that much.
I don't know. Now we can do this. But now you're bringing it more into a character.
Well, I'm just saying, like the stories of these people.
Well, I guess you do have to somewhat deal with characters when you're dealing with stories, but I don't know. I'm keeping it almost more at a macro level.
Okay.
At least from my side of this debate, because you could get into the minutia of the characters that are involved, and granted, characters do make up the story, and in fact, it's the story of the characters and their part in the overall story arc that can even make a somewhat. Actually, I've always said if you have like somewhat of a weak story, but you have really strong characters, that'll make up for it.
Well, that's what I was kind of hitting towards, because it's like, I felt like The Force Awakens was a weaker story, but Kylo Ren his character actually gave it a lot of punch because he was so unhinged and he was kind of like crazy almost, or psychotic. Whereas like Maul, he was cool looking and he had like, the double blade lightsaber and he was acrobatic. But the story of the Phantom Menace overall was a better, like you said, the politics. You had the whole thing between.
Yeah, it was multifaceted.
Yeah, it was multifaceted. Really. The light cloud in the dark, they couldn't see certain things. Now you got this little kid. He's so strong. Where did this come? Do we train him? Do we not? There's
what's
all
cool
these
about
different
the Phantom Menace
elements to it.
Is honestly, you could actually make a story, like an entire movie, out of each of the elements. The Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
You could have taken any one of the story arcs and made an entire movie out of it.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's a good sign. And that's actually because a lot of times, I don't know, I guess a lot of people will cite Attack of the Clones as like their least favorite Star Wars. Well, maybe not now. But
it once held that title.
It did once hold that title. And definitely of, say, the first 6 or even the prequels or whatever, everybody points to Attack of the Clones as their least favorite.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, a lot of times I go for the Phantom Menace. I know it's crazy because here I am like champion in storytelling and all this stuff. But again, the execution, I don't know. Attack of the Clones, I will admit, was a weaker movie, definitely, but now you get to actually see the Anakin Obi Wan thing going. I think it was like what it did for the saga probably overcomes a lot of the weaker storytelling aspects for me. But that said, again, as a story, the Phantom Menace really is super strong.
Yes.
In spite of the fact that a lot of people are like, like even in these marathons, it's like, maybe I'll hop in on episode 3. I don't need to deal with the Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. And it's too bad that it had to be that way.
True. Yeah.
All right, but what about you guys?
Yeah, what do you guys think?
I mean, this one is a good one for debate. I would love to see a lot of comments in here. And first of all, I want to thank everybody who has subscribed to our channel. Our subscribership on YouTube is growing. We still love you guys on the audio podcast. Don't worry about it. But, we're trying to get some more viewers here on our video. On our videos. So, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell down there, get notified whenever we put a new one up. Love to have you join the community for this reason. We like to talk about this stuff. So, what do you guys think about the whole Force Awakens versus Phantom Menace thing? Let us know in the comments section. We answer them all. Tell us what you think. That was a good duel of the fates, even though we agreed.
Yeah.
So what do we got next?
Next, we have From a Certain Point of View.
Ooh, yes.
So this is our feature story.
Our feature topic.
Yep.
The title of the show is this one.
And, of course, we know we had to do it.
We told you guys last week we were going to do it. You know what? We actually had a different topic in mind. I don't know why, because it's not like we didn't know this was coming, but we did. We had a different topic in mind, but now we're going to talk about that next week.
Yep.
So just a little preview. We're going to talk about, Luke Skywalker a little bit and whether or not he's actually, dead. Is he alive? Is he a Force ghost? Is he, like what form are we going to see him? But that's next week. This week, we're talking about this guy.
Yes.
Mandalorian.
Or Din Djarin.
The funny thing about this, just to kick things off, it's like we have been waiting for this show forever.
Yeah.
Ever since they announced it. Yeah, it was just kind of like, this is going to be cool. And it's really important to remember that this is setting the tone for Star Wars on TV. It's not just like, oh, cool, this is a new, now it's a live-action Star Wars TV show. However this actually does is going to determine, in a lot of ways, the future of Star Wars on television, certainly, but maybe even, the future of Star Wars as a franchise. Now, so far, I've been reading a lot of the comments, and people are actually positive about this. A lot of people really like The Mandalorian and like what it does.
Yep. All right, man. So look.
Let's get into it, man.
Let's get to it. All right. So I have some questions for you. And I kind of have these kind of processed in my head. So
well, then I won't interrupt you.
So, out the gate, I'll kind of try to start from the top.
All right.
So
I'm ready.
The Mandalorian doesn't have a theme song or anything like that. It just kind of just jumps out and is like The Mandalorian. And then, it just kind of goes into the story. No opening crawl. How do you feel about it?
I'm fine with it. I don't think it's as jarring as Rogue One.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Rogue One was very
That was weird.
That was weird. Solo even, I honestly think that the movies are the ones that need the opening crawl. Now, do I think that The Mandalorian could have benefited from one? Yes. Do I think that maybe they should continue that because that kind of tells you, hey, this is Star Wars?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. But it's not a deal breaker for me. And actually, the way that it starts out, I think is perfect because you got to remember the tone of the show. It's like this whole, kind of old Western, Clint Eastwood kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Lone gunman type of, well, actually, that kind of sounds like a.
I know, it sounds like an active shooter.
Yeah, like active shooter. But I mean, he's kind of like that gunslinger, Old West kind of thing. And I honestly think that, and it's funny because when they first show the thing, you almost get that that whole whistling. I'm not going to try to whistle in this microphone, but it kind of gives you that nod to Clint Eastwood with the music.
Yeah.
And so I think that because, and then of course in episode 2, we actually for the first time get like the whole, okay, this is, chapter 2, and they give you the title, the child or whatever. It's like, now we didn't get that in 1.
Right.
So now it makes me wonder what they're going to do in 3. Are they going to expand on that? And is it going to, you know what I mean? Or is it going to be something like, where, okay, this is what we're going to get now. It's just going to be title, going to show.
Right. So, okay, so now we got him past that. It opens up. The Mandalorian, he's out there. It's a vast planet. It looks like he's like in the middle of nowhere. And once again, another ice planet. At least that's what it looks like.
Yeah, they were saying like there was some. I was reading something where some fan thought it was like something that we see like in one of the new canon books or something. I can't remember what the planet was now.
Yeah,
but I digress.
So you got him walking. He walks in, a Mandalorian walks into a bar. Sounds like a bad joke, but
yeah, Mandalorian, a Jedi, and a
So he walks into this bar, and of course, he's there to pick up a bounty. Of course, the person that he's coming to pick up has already been accosted by some other, seems like nefarious gentleman, and so the Mandalorian takes a seat at the bar, and then on it goes. So. Now, what we can kind of tell about the Mandalorian already is that he's very cool, calm, and collected. Those guys try to come over and try to harass him, calling him Mando and everything like that. And it just really seemed like they're really trying to like almost like bully him almost into something.
Yeah.
And they make references to his attire and his suit in particular because of that. Was it Bartari steel? And they were kind of asking him, is it real? Is that type of thing? So now,
Mama make this for you?
So it seems like the Mandalorian, like this is, as what we've known about the Mandalorians, like they're very particular about their culture.
Oh yeah,
their uniform, their outfits, their uniforms.
But then again, we knew this anyway because of Clone Wars and Rebels and things like that. And I think that's one of the things that's cool is that this show is coming after that, where we have a lot of the Mandalorian lore. Mm-hmm. As a backdrop, and they even put a lot of Easter eggs in it too, where they would, I'm trying to remember what they were specifically, but they would mention little things and everything that were first introduced in the Clone Wars and and Rebels and stuff like that. So I mean, so far, I think what they're doing is they're doing very well with the whole treatment of the Mandalorian and giving us some information. In fact, in episode 2, I think it is. They talk about how it's almost like you get the feeling that, you are reminded that they're actually warriors. The bounty hunter thing is just something they're kind of doing, you know, and they actually bring this up in episode 1 a lot too, is that they're trying to bring back their culture and do all this stuff. And the bounty hunting, I don't want to say it's like a front, but it's kind
of like what they kind of do to kind of survive, basically.
Yeah, it's not really like they're not like a cultural thing. Whereas, and quite honestly, what I think is funny is, and I think that's what the show is trying to do, is the only Mandalorians we ever really cared about were the Fets, and they're not even really Mandalorians.
Right.
You know, they just have the armor, but that's what everybody, you know, measures the whole thing, Jango and Boba, and it's like, well, okay, they're trying to get, I think, the rest of, like, even the casual fans and stuff like that, a little bit more
engaged
into what the Mandalorians really are, because as we know, not everybody watches, you know, Rebels or, you know, the Clone Wars or whatever, so they don't know, you know, what we know about it.
Exactly. And, you know, so this particular, you know, alien is, you know, taunting the Mandalorian, you know, taking a knife and scraping his suit and stuff like that, and just really kind of trying to irritate him and whatnot. So, of course...
Very brave.
So, the Mandalorian has to put, you know, these jokers in their place. And then there was that one kind of cool but kind of gruesome scene where the one guy tried to escape running out the door, and he, you know, takes the little lasso out and sucks him back in, but then the door kind of closes around him and cuts him in half.
Yep.
So I kind of like that, like, you know, what we're getting with this show already is kind of has that edge.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny to me, too, because, you know, everybody's like, well, you know, this is kind of PG-13, and I'm like, wow, what universe is that? This is a little bit beyond PG-13, and I like the fact that this is obviously made for
young adults and adults, yeah.
You know, yeah, kind of like in our generation. It's mainly made for, I think, people that grew up with the original trilogy, honestly. Because when you take the first 2 episodes in their totality, this is basically like Favreau and Filoni going, you know what? We're going to have fun.
Doing stuff that we would like.
Yeah, it's like Star Wars hardcore fans are finally making content.
Yeah. Now,
so it'll be like, dude, wouldn't it be cool if we put a sand crawler in this? You know what I mean? It's like, I mean, they're... You know, and they're making like these different references, and it wouldn't surprise me if the Wilhelm scream comes back at some point.
Yeah. So, all right. So we kind of see that the Mandalorian is like, he's a no nonsense kind of guy. I loved how, you know, it kind of reminds me of, you know what this actually reminds me of? Mandalorian reminds me of a Star Wars version of the TV show Gotham.
Yeah, I could see that.
It's kind of got that dirty, grungy kind of vibe where, you know, it's like him against the world almost. When he finally does make his bounty, I love this, that, you know, he kind of delivers that line like, hey, look, the guy's trying to weasel out of it. He doesn't care. He's like, look, man, I can take you warm or cold. Which one do you want?
Yep, it's kind of
you
like,
know, it's like,
whatever.
Pick your poison. You know, you can do this easy way or the hard way, basically. And so then now, you know, they take him to, you know, he takes him to his ship, and, you know, now they're on the ship, and he's asking all these questions like, well, do you ever take your helmet off? And he's all trying to.
That was the only thing, honestly,
that kind of bothered you?
Yeah, I mean. Once again, you know, they're foraying into almost like non-Star Wars humor in a sense. I mean, and it's kind of like, you know, he's speaking basic, and it's kind of like, I think it would have, I get it. They're trying to, because, I can't remember the actor's name. I want to say it's like Horatio something. He's a famous comedian anyway, and I get it. They wanted to capitalize on that. But one of the things that I liked, thank goodness this was like only seems like a one-time thing. The 2 things that I was kind of like, that took me out of it a little was that, and then the little goofy thing where he's trying to, you know, ride the
the Belk?
Yeah, is that what it was called?
The little...
Yeah.
Like a little animal cracker?
Yeah. Exactly. One that broke in half, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, and it wasn't so much this, it's just kind of the way they handled it, you know, and it was like, but fortunately, these are just... Like, I really like the fact that, they're actually having aliens speaking an alien language with subtitles.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think that they need to do, because otherwise it starts to feel a little too Star Trek-y in a way.
Yeah.
And, it could take you out of it sometimes.
Mm.
But, I mean, Nick Nolte's performance, phenomenal.
I have spoken.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be like T-shirts and bumper stickers and everything. And, I mean, it is. It's a brilliant, funny line, you know, and they don't overuse it.
No.
Which I think is cool. And it's great that, he's an Ugnaught.
Right.
And he's like, because you've never seen those guys like that.
Well, I mean, I even love the fact that the Mandalorian had the whole carbon freezing thing on the ship. Like, that was dope.
Well, here's the thing that is really cool, especially for all you guys that are like kind of like super fans. You probably caught this too. But the thing that's really funny was word of the whole Han Solo thing probably spread because if you remember, nobody had ever really used that for a human before.
Right.
They made pretty big mention of that in Empire. Like, yeah, man, this is like, for supplies. We've never done this before.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, then they find out that Han Solo survives. Now, 5 years or whatever after Return of the Jedi, bounty hunters are like, yeah, man, this is kind of cool. Like, we're going to do this.
Exactly.
We got our own little carbon, freezing unit on our ship. And, now it's like standard on all the vehicles or whatever.
I know. It's like, now he had them all lined up like dominoes or like little ice trays or something like that. It was just cool.
Yeah, and it's just kind of like, once again, it's tying in a lot of these things that...
We're making that connection, to the original trilogy.
Really hardcore fans, would appreciate it.
So, like, you saw Salacious Crumb's...
Well, that hasn't been confirmed that it's him.
No, I was going to say his species.
Yeah.
His species was...
I thought that was tremendous.
Yeah.
I was laughing.
And it's funny because that one wasn't laughing as he was watching his friend or species getting roasted on the open fire.
That was great. But it also, what's cool about the series too is that there's definitely an element of danger in this universe.
Yeah. Yeah, even when he's walking around, he's always seems like he's looking over his shoulder.
Well, what I like about it is, because up until then, we've either been with the Empire or we've been with the Rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
Or First Order and Resistance. But, kind of, let's face it, they're the Empire and the Rebellion.
Right.
Okay, you're pretty safe if you're with any of these guys. And that's what I like, is the fact that we're living in a post, defeated Empire world, and so now even the Empire is not inspiring the fear and the absolute control that they once had.
Mm-hmm.
So they're all like kind of hiding out and...
Yeah, it definitely, I mean, and this is kind of gave me the Rogue One vibe, because especially that whole scene with like Cassian when he like killed that spy.
Yep.
And it's just like, that's kind of like the world.
What the series is like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And those are the things that I like now.
And it's kind of like we're getting that whole underworld Star Wars that we were kind of promised years ago, but just kind of from a different point of view so far.
I just wish it were an hour.
Yeah, that's the only thing I really wish I would change is,
or at least 45 minutes.
Yeah. Now,
first episode was like 37. The second was only like 32 or something.
Mm-hmm. And so I'm wondering if, if they're actually going to make it an hour like each.
I'm wondering that too, because honestly, if I had, like I said, I have very few complaints or criticisms of the show, but one of them is, just as I get invested, it's over.
It's over. Yeah, especially that second one, man. I was just
yeah, man.
And that's why I kind of felt like it was wasted time, but I was like, well, it is a continuation. So I was like, well, maybe, but still, But
the thing is it's like, it's almost like not enough is happening in each episode. That's about the only thing. It's like the first two episodes could have been one episode to me.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be like one, and hopefully that's how they eventually do it.
And if they're going to keep it at like 30 minutes or whatever, give me a little bit more
meat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. I don't want to see him
walking around. I don't want the whole 24 thing where I'm watching Kim Bauer like run from a bear in the woods for like 45 minutes. I mean, I want something, But of course, we have to talk about Baby Yoda. Well, everybody's talking, even though he's not really Yoda, we know that. But I mean,
right. So the big spoiler was that the bounty that he was placed on. So Carl Weathers' character was it Garen or we're gonna learn him.
Yeah, but it's like I'm getting bad with names.
Garen Cardon or something like that.
Yeah, something.
But
like that.
He basically sent him out. And he's like, "Look, I got this whole this one bounty is kind of off the books. You know, he has to go meet the guy face to face. It ends up being this former Imperial officer who
brilliantly played by Werner Herzog.
Yeah, and then
Werner Herzog.
He has this Mandalorian steel, the Bactari steel, this big thick brick, and he's like, "Well, I got a whole lot more for you. You know, if you kind of complete this stuff."
Well, one of the things that I thought was really cool is like when you try to pay him in Imperial credits, and he's like,
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
You know, and that again, it's those subtle things. You know, it's showing you that the Empire's no longer in power anymore.
Yeah,
and these are the things that again, they're subtle, but I think that they're really important in setting the whole tone of the show and just giving you an overall sense of this is a universe in transition. You know, this is a universe that it's not safe. Yeah. Anything can happen to you.
Yeah, definitely. I really did like the, of course, the IG droid. We got to talk about IG-11.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was cool.
Hilarious.
Yeah, man. That whole self-destruct thing.
Oh, yeah, man.
He just kept trying to blow himself up.
Yeah, he's just like, okay, well, it's over. Just going to self-destruct. Like, wait, stop.
No, it was funny because, like, I've seen IG-88, and I've seen like the IG droids, and they've always been talked about like some of the most deadliest, and you don't know.
You know why? It's because it's all from Tales of Mos Eisley. There's one of the short, because it's basically like a collection of short stories, and of course one of the short stories famously is how Boba Fett got out of the Sarlacc pit, but one of the other ones was all IG-88. And that's where everybody's getting like all the lore about IG-88. I mean, he did pop up in other Legends novels, don't get me wrong, but that's the one that really goes into the creation of the IG series droids. And, I mean, he ended up killing like I think a bunch of other IG series droids, and they're, so IG-88 was actually one of the deadliest assassins, in the universe.
But even the way the IG droids are constructed, I see why they're so deadly, because it's like they're in like constant rotation. And I was just like, wow, like this thing is pretty powerful.
Yeah, because I mean, when you stop and think about it, especially with all the canon stuff, well, at the time, not anymore, obviously, but with like Zuckuss and Bosk and like Dengar and all those guys, they had like 2 minutes of screen time in Empire Strikes Back, and that was it. But then you get like all these novels based on them, and that's where we really get all our information about them. So it's interesting to see how Disney is gonna, are they gonna pull a Thrawn and actually, kind of change them? Because what I find really interesting is that the Thrawn of Rebels is a little similar to the Thrawn of the original Timothy Zahn novels. The Thrawn that we're getting in the new Timothy Zahn novels, he's not really a villain. He's actually kind of an honorable, cool guy. I mean, it's like, it's really weird how they're writing him a little bit. And then, IG-11 is kind of like IG-88 as he was written before, but he's kind of, I don't know, more aloof and a little bit
sillier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He kind of has a K2SO thing going.
I was just about to say that he kind of gives me that.
He kind of has that K2SO vibe to him, which I'm cool with it. But I mean, the thing is it just shows you though how they're slowly rewriting a little bit. Some of the, at least what we took as canon before.
Yeah.
But I was really shocked. By the way, and if you haven't guessed already, this is a spoiler discussion. So if you haven't seen it and you don't want to be spoiled anymore, don't, turn it off. I'll wait. All right. I couldn't believe he killed him.
Yeah.
Like when he actually shot him, like I get what he was trying to do. He was trying to stop him, but it's like, here I am looking forward to the series going, sweet. At first we all thought IG-88 was coming in. Then it's like, no, it's not him. It's IG-11. I'm like, yeah, just like, this guy isn't actually Boba Fett, right?
Right, exactly.
But I mean, it's kind of like when he killed him I'm like, you killed him in the first episode.
Well, yeah, man, but I don't think we're going to see the end of
I know IG
droids.
I know they can rebuild them, and there could be like IG 15 or something. I
mean, we got 88, so why wouldn't we have 11?
Well, true.
And IG does not stand for Instagram, by the way. So, so don't try to follow him.
Right? Yeah. Exactly.
But follow us, though.
Yes, at Head to Head SW.
But no, what I did like about the first episode, one is that, you got to see like the calamari credits and how they kind of were like fishy and stuff like just little stuff like that was kind of cool to me. And then, of course they said this bounty was like for someone 50 years old. And of course you're thinking like, okay, this is a human. And then when the big spoiler happens, when actually they stumble upon what this bounty is, who this bounty is for, and it's for this baby Yoda, and he's 50 years old, but he's still like a baby. But of course, that species, of course, we know can live up to at least 900 years old. So now we're kind of like, whoa, okay. Well, what now? Like, okay, who is this and why is this the bounty? But we knew that doctor who was in the office with the Imperial officer was like really hot to get.
Yeah, and
this little baby Yoda.
That's one of the things that whenever I talk to people, everybody focuses on the whole Werner Herzog character, wanting him dead or alive or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but didn't you catch this Imperial doctor? Like, the remnants of the Empire knows about this creature and want him for some reason. What's the reason? I think that's like the bigger question. He's the one I focus more on, not Herzog's character.
And we found out that reason in the second episode.
Yeah, because
in the second chapter, I should say, where he actually used the Force,
which I think was hilarious too, when he kept trying to like heal him, but Mandalorian kept putting him back in his crib or something, like because he had no idea. And what's interesting about that, especially after Baby Yoda like floats the beast in the air and stuff like that. What's really interesting is it's only 5 years after Return of the Jedi. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the Jedi had been extinct. Because a lot of people are like, why is this guy acting like he's never seen the Force before? And I keep trying to say to people, like, listen, you have to understand that we've seen it, but anybody outside of Vader and Luke and all these guys, like, by then it was long gone. Now, in the prequel era, yes, but, by 5 years after Return of the Jedi, even during the original trilogy, Solo was all like, well, I've never seen anything that makes me believe in... everybody thinks that the Force is a myth at that point.
Yeah, even the guy said, your devotion to that ancient religion is
right. And that was like episode 4. Now,
Vader had to prove it to him.
Yeah. And prove it to him he did.
Right. So a lot of people in the Empire found out about the Force. That's because they ended up getting choked out by Vader. But yeah, the galaxy at large, though, I mean, there was mention of Jedi. Even Jabba, it's like, oh, he's using an old Jedi mind trick.
Yeah,
so it constantly reinforces the fact that the Jedi have been kind of extinct,
right?
For a long period
something
of time.
That only people that were around for a long time even knew who these people were. So yeah, exactly. I mean, they're probably thinking, well, I don't really know what it was all about, but whatever. So I'm really interested to see where they go next. Like episode 3 is going to be really crazy to me.
Now the other thing too, I didn't like about. Well, I thought it was cool that the baby Yoda was able to use the Force, and it kind of, he wasn't as strong as of course a full blown Yoda, I guess. But that little knife that the Mandalorian used to kill that big old. I'm like, really? That's what I was
like. It's like, did you know? I'm glad somebody else brought that up because I'm watching that going.
Like,
I mean, is that?
Like
he must have known like the right spot to hit that thing.
Yeah, because I'm thinking like he's shooting this thing with a blaster and the thing is still coming at him.
Flamethrowers, all kinds of stuff.
Little baby like butter knife and all.
Hey, but there is another thing that now that I'm thinking about it, now we know why Vader said no disintegrations to Boba Fett in Empire Strikes Back.
Why is that?
Well, because the Mandalorian was using that disintegration gun to disintegrate all the Jawas.
Man, I love that thing.
Yeah.
I love watching him pick off those Jawas, man. That was awesome
hilarious.
I mean, he was just pegging those.
Completely. And that's why, obviously, Vader knew about that, so he was kind of like, hey, no disintegrations. Because I guess that's something the Mandalorians like to do.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I guess, yeah, with that huge rifle, that he was using there. That thing.
Well, it makes me wonder, too, because, and that's another thing, that rifle obviously being a nod to the holiday special.
Mm-hmm.
But it makes me wonder, because even in the holiday special, it was just kind of like a blaster rifle kind of thing. So it makes me wonder, and Favreau, like I said, and Filoni are just having a lot of fun in the sandbox of Star Wars. So they seized upon the no disintegration line and said, yeah, we're going to explain why you said that.
Mm-hmm.
But it makes me wonder if it's a type of shell that he's putting in there that causes a disintegration, if there's another one that you use.
I think so, because it seems like there's times where he, shot at them, and it's like, you get like a regular laser bolt out of that thing. But then there's like that other one where it's just like, oh yeah, like you're out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was, of course, upset about his ship being ransacked and destroyed. Yeah.
Which I also thought was funny because it was like they did a little nod to Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade when he's hanging off of the sandcrawler and.
Yeah. Trying to get up.
And trying to get up, and it was like they were going against the rocks and trying to get him out that way. And
yeah, the little Jawas were trying to. But then that whole like deadfall that he caught, man, when they hit him with that.
Oh man, with that stun,
like the R2,
or whatever.
Yeah, that was another nod.
Man,
too.
I was just kind of like, dude, that was crazy. Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, the second episode was really funny too, especially when they're all like, we want the armor. No, okay, well, what about? No, okay, well. All right, give us this egg.
Yeah. I'm like, well, what the heck is the egg? And then they're all chanting, the egg, the egg, the egg. I'm like, okay, I'm thinking it's like and it's all covered. And I'm thinking like, maybe this is like what a Jawa egg looks like. I don't know.
Basically like a Star Wars cream egg.
Yeah, it's like a big Cadbury egg.
Yeah,
and they're just
like
all
giant Cadbury egg. And they're just all like scooping out this goop and like having fun. And it's.
Oh, yeah, there's the other thing too. Watching Baby Yoda eat when he was chasing a little lizard.
Oh, yeah.
And then he just starfs that thing on. I mean, he wasn't playing.
No, man, that was like, little Baby Yoda is awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that little thing. But I mean, what's cool about it, too, speaking of which, and this is why I guess what they were saying about this is going to be change the Star Wars universe as you know it, blah, 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 is that, we assumed, like, let's say they made a Yoda origin story, right?
Mm-hmm.
We assume like, oh yeah, man. I mean, if he's 900, imagine when he was like at only 150 or 160.
We used to say that, like in his,
in his
young
prime.
years.
But maybe that's not his prime. Maybe 500 or 600 is more the prime. You know what I mean? It's because it's like if you're 50 and you're still basically a baby.
Yeah, like he probably won't even reach quote unquote teenage year till he's probably like 300 or something,
or a couple hundred, or yeah exactly. So I mean, it does change things a little bit.
Yeah.
And then, of course, what is it that they know? What are they trying to prevent? Of course, they said that we're going to see a little bit about how the First Order is formed in this.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff, that I'm really looking for. I mean, now we're on the, we were spoiled a little bit because we got like 2 episodes in a week. But now starting this Friday, it's just, this Friday, then the following Friday, and so on and so on.
Yep.
And, of course, I'm sure... in the Cantina section, we're going to continue to review, each episode as it comes up, or, maybe we'll take a group of them, like maybe one will do like 3 and 4 or something like that. But, in the meantime, let us know what you guys thought of these first 2 episodes. Is The Mandalorian living up to your expectations? Who's your favorite character in The Mandalorian? What do you think of this whole Baby Yoda storyline? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and, hit the bell. In fact, in which corner is it? That corner. That corner, you will see a little subscribe button. So click it. It's right there.
Do it now.
Yep, right there. Do it now. So, or like I said, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, let us know at HeadToHeadSW. We'd really love to know what you guys think of The Mandalorian. Is it actually reigniting your excitement for Star Wars? Let us know.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, now it's time for basically my favorite segment.
Mm-hmm.
And that is Clear Your Mind. That's right. This is where we take your questions. You guys submit questions to us. We answer it the best of our ability anyway. And we like to have some fun with it. So who's our first question?
Our first question comes from Lamar Davis. Lamar wants to know, why do you think The Last Jedi DVD was the highest grossing selling DVD of 2018 when the fan base is split?
Don't know. What's our next question? I have no idea. Look, I don't know what you people are doing when it comes to Star Wars. I mean, half you guys are complaining about stuff, and then it's kind of like everybody whines about The Last Jedi, and as everybody was talking about how it was the worst Star Wars movie ever, it goes to make like $2 billion. So I don't know what you all are thinking. Let us know there in the comments section. How about that?
I think, you know what? I think a lot of people, it's for, it's part of a collection, one.
Well, yeah, you know what? And I'm like that, man. I'm a purist. Some band will come out with an album I hate, but because I have the other 20 albums by them, it's like I have to buy it.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly, here's the thing, and this is like a big secret. I'm going to tell everybody right now. I don't think everybody hated The Last Jedi.
I mean, yeah.
I think it was a small group, you know what I mean, that was very vocal, that really didn't like it. I mean, I'm sure maybe some casual fans or whatever, but I mean, a lot of people. And look, I mean, we liked it. Mm-hmm. We fully admit, look, there's a lot of problems with it.
Yeah. I think also just because, it's the last movie for Carrie Fisher. I think there's other thing is I think the more you watch it, you might grow to like it.
That's another thing I was going to say too. There's probably a lot of people that went and saw it a second or third time, and then maybe it's not that bad.
Exactly.
But then they didn't bother to go change their Rotten Tomato vote or whatever else,
or it's like it's not as bad as I thought.
Right.
Still,
the problem is though, on social media, it's like the people that are the most venomous and all that stuff. Those are the ones that tend to make they're the ones that ran people like Kelly Marie Tran off social media, and
right.
all of our other friends and our other fellow Star Wars pundits, I guess, or podcasters or YouTubers or whatever. It's the same thing. It's like they're constantly filling the comments section. Well, there was even that one guy, remember, on our Facebook page or something that was totally going off, and it's like, okay, dude, I mean, I get it. And the funny thing about that guy, I didn't totally disagree with a lot of his points, but it was obvious he never listened to our show.
Well, yeah, and that's what I think a lot of things.
And
that's another thing too. It's like when there's enough people who don't like something, it brings other people out to troll, and that's what they like to do.
Yeah,
and a lot of times they don't even have a stake in a horse in that race. They just want to keep up crap with everybody else.
They just want to do it, and it's like, what is your deal? And it's kind of like, okay, I get it. Here's a thought. Why don't you make your own show or whatever about why you hate this so much? Mm-hmm. And then, all the little trolls can go play or whatever. But I mean, and again, if you guys are watching this now and you're ready to leave a comment, understand that, he and I both know full well there's a lot of issues with The Last Jedi. We're not.
Indeed.
We're not one of these like blind followers of, everything in Star Wars is wonderful. And, we're not, shills, which basically is people that are, will always
opposite of trolls.
Yeah, the show basically wants the Disney and Lucasfilm and all those guys to like give them free stuff, and in order to keep getting that free stuff, they'll continue to say Star Wars is great.
Mm-hmm.
But two fans, two generations, all things Star Wars. Darryl and I love Star Wars very much, and because we love the franchise, we'll be the first people to talk about anything that's bad.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, we're also not going to sit there and just like, it's almost like it's become a sport to just pick on anything that's Star Wars related.
Yeah. I mean, it's the problem with the digital age and everybody having social media is that everybody, believes they can just say whatever and their opinion matters.
Say whatever, yep, and their opinion matters. And I mean, look, you can have your own, we're growing our YouTube channel. We've had the podcast, the audio podcast, for a while, which you can subscribe to, by the way, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts now. Twitch, I think it's on. I think it's on it's Google Play. It's on a variety of platforms. But we wanted to have the video version. Pretty soon we're going to do a full blown multicam thing. I mean, we're growing, and we're going to grow the channel, and with you guys' help, it'll grow a lot faster. But I think it's difficult to explain this. Why the DVD actually made You know, I mean, because you would think that the word of mouth and everything would have killed it, but it just goes to show you that I think that vocal minority really isn't the Star Wars fandom as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, hopefully that answers your question. Maybe a little bit too well, you know?
All right,
what do we got next?
All right, the next question comes from Tanya Daniels.
Okay.
Her question is, do you think we will get to see a lot of scenes with Lando? I'm really anxious to see him back in Star Wars. Billy D. Williams.
I don't know if we're actually going to get a lot.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get a lot either.
I don't think we're going to get a lot. I think the ones that he's going to be in are going to be meaty.
I think it'll be impactful whenever he does show.
Impactful, thank you.
Yeah, it's going to be impactful when he shows. I mean, Billy D. Williams, the man himself, does have some health issues, especially dealing with his knees and things of that nature.
And it's really more like a mobility problem. He almost has that like when Peter Mayhew.
I was just about to say, you
know, he was only able to do Chewbacca in like very limited capacity before he unfortunately passed away.
Right.
So I mean, I think that Billy D's scenes are going to be impactful. I think that, you know, like the scene, and actually I honestly think that what we saw in the trailer is going to be like about 80% of what we're going to see.
I think he's really going to be called in. My you know, surmise of it is he's going to be called in by Leia to help. Like, okay, I need someone who's strong, who's charismatic.
Help me, Lando Calrissian.
Right. And you need somebody who's going to be charismatic to kind of win over the hearts and minds of people. And who better than Lando Calrissian? And he's a smooth talker. Everybody knows.
Well, he's also, everybody forgets that he's
a general.
Yeah, he's a general, and he's also a rebel hero. Now, Billy D himself tried to remind us of that at Star Wars Celebration this past year. But I think that the important thing to note, though, and again, we could be surprised. I mean, he could actually pop up in a lot of different scenes. Who knows?
Yeah, but I think that one big one we saw in the trailer when he's sitting around there, all things like that strategy meeting.
Yep.
I think that's going to be impactful.
It's going to be a big one, and I think he's going to be involved in whatever
that big battle,
space battle. You know, because I'm sure there's going to be like a ground battle and then a space battle. I think that's going to actually be. You know,
the big points was
pretty much, what he's going to be doing. And I think, you know, we might see some other scenes where he's interacting with some other characters. But
a lot of people speculate that Kyra, or was that her name, or the one with the purple, the helmet, they kind of land on her planet.
Oh, yeah.
She's a new character.
Yeah. Man, you know what? And it's such an easy name to remember. It's Carrie Russell's character.
Yeah, Carrie Russell's character. I won't keep wanting to say it's just something.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Once again, this is what happens when you deeply research your Star Wars stuff before a show, everybody.
But I think she's going to.
Everybody's going to be.
It's been a long week.
Hear that.
But I think she's going to have some connection to Billy D. And so, well, not Billy D., but Lando. I think she's going to have some connection to him in some way, somehow, like maybe a daughter or something.
What's that other new one? This is like really bad. Oh. The other new character. The one everybody assumes is going to be Lando's granddaughter or something.
That's what I was talking about.
Oh, that's the one you're talking about? I thought you were talking about the bounty hunter.
No,
she's not even a bounty hunter. Okay.
Moving on.
I guess I better clear my mind.
Yes. Back to the cantina. Too much Cantina.
Okay, so that's who you were talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Too much Cantina, man. Sorry.
This is so stupid.
You can wash it down with some nice water. But yeah, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I think that's. But back to the original question.
She could be, and she could have some relationship with him. Maybe she's the one that brings him into it. You know, because I mean, you would assume that it would be Leia, or it would be maybe that message that she sent out, and maybe he was just a little late in getting the memo or whatever. Mm-hmm. But you know, it's tough to say. Once again, it's yet another thing they got to wrap into the Rise of Skywalker, and it just. The only thing that I think concerns me about this movie is the fact that they have to answer so many things, and they have to tie up so many things, and I just hope that they could do it.
Yeah, they have enough time to do it.
That they have enough time, and that they could adequately do this without basically messing it up.
We shall see.
All right. Well, this is we're coming to the close of our show, but I just wanted to, in addition to, I'll get used to this, hitting that subscribe button down there and then clicking on the bell, to get notifications when we have a new show. In addition to welcoming our new subscribers, because we got like 4 or 5 new subscribers last week, so thanks for joining us. Just to let you guys know what the tone of the YouTube version of the show is going to be. And certainly this has been the same with all you, all the people who have been listening to us for the last year or so. We're trying to make this kind of like more of a Star Wars discussion. It's almost like we're sitting in, kind of our living rooms or something, and we're just all talking Star Wars. That's why you see me addressing the camera a lot. It's kind of like we're all part of this discussion. And we encourage you guys to actually leave a comment below. We don't want to be yet another Star Wars speculation or news show. We want to be more of a discussion-oriented show. Because as, we talked about, we actually started this because he and I would talk about Star Wars, and we would just get so in-depth into this that people would just be like, man, why don't you guys have your own show? And then one day we were like, yeah, why don't we have our own show? We run a video production company. We have gear. Let's actually do it.
Let's get it out there.
And then, of course, because we are doing a lot of other productions, that's why we started out doing this sort of as just like a, kind of a wide shot thing. But it's kind of like, no, let's get this a little bit better. And, so soon we're going to do this whole multicam thing. Like, well, we did try to do, I think, a little bit before. So, hopefully you guys, hop on, tell your friends about us, let's all enjoy and discuss this thing called Star Wars together. So I think that's going to do it for our show this week. I'm Eric Vansel.
I'm DARRYL Sanders.
May the Force be with you.
Always.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you, always.